House in Budget Atlantic. Yeah, baby. We have made it back. We're un-jet lagged here and trying to get ready for some football this week amidst a national debate of kneeling and patriotism and flags. But it is Pittsburgh week around here. We got a real football game to play and a very, very important one for both of these franchises. This guy knows the roads to Baltimore from back in the days of Terry Bradshaw and Franco Harris. He is the longtime voice of Pittsburgh sports and journalism and covering the Steelers. No one knows more about them than Ed Bouchette. He's covered the Steelers since 1985. He's also heard on 93.7 and KDKA in Pittsburgh and at post-gazette.com. He's one of our defending champions. Ed, nothing going on in Pittsburgh. Nothing to see here this week with Villanueva and Roethlisberger and Tomlin and flags. And, oh, by the way, losing in, not such a great fashion this week.
Yeah, it's their stock is not on its way up. Let's say that, Nestor, in all kinds of ways. Popularity, the standing in the AFC North. They thought they were off to a soft opening with those 3 games, and here they're 2-1.
Well, let's talk about on the field in a minute. We could talk about taking the knee, but I think the big picture of all of this, and with smart guys like you, I'm going to be discussing this all week, is what an incredible task this is for the John Harbaughs and the Mike Tomlins to try to bring together maybe or maybe not a divisive or a divided locker room, but certainly a locker room where there's black and white and east and west and right and left and a lot of different opinions. And behind all of this, there are human beings and there is management going on beyond, hey, can we run the ball and what's wrong with our O-line and are our guys healthy and where's our quarterback's head? But this taking the knee thing and 4-hour meetings on Saturday afternoon, this is where the management skills of these coaches and head coaches and the brotherhood of these guys and what they need to do to go win, I think around the whole league, this is going to be a test for everyone, Ed.
Yeah, and, the Steelers thought they had the solution by just not coming out while they played the national anthem, and they admitted they butchered it. In fact, Alejandro Villanueva admitted it as much. He didn't want – they were supposed to come out with him and the 3 captains, and somehow they all got confused, and it wound up just being him at the edge of the at the edge of the tunnel, and the other guys behind him, and it just looked terrible. It really did. So the Steelers are absorbing much of this because of that, because of Alejandro, who's an Army Ranger, 3-time tour of Afghanistan, West Point grad, captain, all that. I mean, and he's a great guy. Because of that, the Steelers are really taking it, I think, more than anybody else.
Well, and it hadn't been any easier here, from a fan base standpoint and burning Ravens gear and I'm selling my tickets and burning my PSLs. I mean, all of that's going on here, but under the backdrop of this, it's the most important game for both of these teams moving forward as for what it will do for the standings. And obviously we're now in a 2-team race in this division, Ed. But, neither one of these teams feels real good about the way it's playing right now.
Well, no, I mean, not at all. The Steelers' offense that was supposed to maybe be the best in the league has just flopped. Their running back, Le'Veon Bell, former All-Pro, Pro Bowl running back, has been terrible after his season-long, I won't call it a holdout, an absence, a year-long absence until the Monday before the opener. And he just does not look the same. Nestor, he doesn't have that burst. He's not running good routes. It's just it's like a different running back. So, and I'm sure after that debacle in London, the Ravens aren't feeling real good either.
Well, running the ball's been hard for everybody in the league, right? Offensive line play is really down across all rankings and ratings. Defenses are beating offenses pretty good, and especially at the run stop. And the Ravens were good at that. Look, the Ravens lost Yanda, they lost Williams, now they've lost Brent Urban. These were probably their 3 best interior football players, and they're going to be playing without all, 2 of them for a long time. And we don't know about Brandon Williams, but the injury part of this is also when guys go down. I mean, Pouncey goes down, you got nobody to replace him.
No, and they've experienced that over the last 5 years. They know what that's like. So far, they've been able to avoid any serious injuries. Now, they were without 3 starters in Chicago, but none of them seriously hurt. In fact, they could all play on Sunday against Baltimore. So that's the one thing they've been able to avoid, and it's been their, I'm not going to say their excuse, but it's been a reason, I think, why they've not been more successful in the past 3 years or so, because they were hit with those serious injuries, and suspensions, I may add. But they have, all their players are relatively healthy. There's no excuse there other than, the Le'Veon Bell one. And hey, you said the running game's not good. The Steelers just gave up 220 yards rushing on the ground to the Bears.
Well, and maybe that's a hallmark for the Ravens. I'm not sure, but around here, we had a quarterback situation where, and I know you saw this early in the morning as you guys were getting ready for your game. You look up and they're getting beat 44-0, and Flacco hasn't broken 20 yards passing, and Mallett's out on the field, and they got to get on a 5-hour flight to come back. I mean, if you're the Steelers, you're probably feeling pretty good about that part of how the morning went. Then you have to go out there and do your own thing. The fallout for the Villanueva and the Roethlisberger thing, where one says he's sorry he went out, the other guy says he's sorry he didn't go out. How's that going to play in there with the veteran leadership? And let's be honest, the Steelers have something different than a lot of teams. They have an African-American head coach as well as part of this, and this has, harken back to the ugliest days of America where we are talking about black and white here, and there is a difference, right?
Well, that's what it all started. With Kaepernick and others, that's how it all got started. And now it proliferated this past Sunday because of what Trump said, and it was like a challenge laid down, and the NFL is trying to respond. They have responded. I mean, you saw what Dallas did, and Jerry Jones, who I believe was a Trump supporter.
Very much a big donor, among the biggest.
A knee.
Yeah.
They were all taking a knee, and I don't know, where this goes from here. It's going to be interesting to see what happens Sunday in Baltimore, Nestor.
Well, I mean, we got people saying they're going to sell their tickets and fans are never going to come. Look, my dad, and I'll say this all week long, my dad in 1981, Ed, swore he would never watch another Major League Baseball game when they walked off, and that's just not, fans have been coming back, the opiate for the masses, their love of the brand, their love of the team, their love of tailgating, all of that stuff. But, I do wonder where this is going because, Trump knew what he was doing. I mean, Trump was looking to make this black versus white. He knew that this group of men, these group of people, were not going to back down and are not going to back down. And I think you deep down know that too. I mean, there's a lot of macho, there's a lot of testosterone, there's a lot of alpha male all throughout the NFL, from Goodell through the Rooneys and the Bishottis and the Crafts, all the way down to the last guy in the 53-man squad. They all like to believe that they stand for something and stand up for something, and and are going to be very, very passionate about this when they're called out and called SOBs. That shouldn't come as a shock to anyone.
Well, if he knew what he was doing, it might be the first time, Nestor, since he was elected. I think the President of the United States should just put his nose elsewhere. Maybe he should be down there helping Puerto Rico with its problems.
Well, and the other part of this, and you go back to 1985 covering the team, the animosity that he has for not being allowed to buy the Buffalo Bills, for not being allowed to be in the league, for the way the USFL thing went down 30 years ago. I mean, he, in a lot of circles, the places that he has been rejected in life, this is where he has used his presidency to bully. This is his chance to go after and, salve an old battle scar from 30 years ago with a bunch of guys that wouldn't let him in the league, right?
Oh, yeah. This is, and those guys, a lot of them are different now, too. He ruined the USFL. I covered that Pittsburgh Maulers. In fact, I covered the meeting down in that island just off Jacksonville.
Wow.
When they decided to go into the fall, and that ultimately killed the Pittsburgh Maulers because they weren't going to compete with the Steelers in the fall. And DeBartolo owned that team. Eddie's father owned the team, but it was in the family, and Eddie Jr. was involved as well. But There's a book coming out right now on the USFL 30 years later, more than 30
Jeff
now.
Pearlman's book? Is that?
Pardon me?
Jeff Pearlman's book?
Yes.
Yeah.
He just finished it, and he interviewed me for it, and it largely, and it has nothing to do with him winning the presidency. He was writing this before. It largely points the finger at Trump for ruining that league.
He is Ed Bouchette. You can find him out on Twitter at Ed Bouchette. That's Bouchette, as well as at post-gazette.com. Ed, one by one, what are the Steelers' biggest issues here, as far as leaky? I mean, and it's changed every week here for the Ravens with injuries, with drafts. The day they bring Macklin and you feel like they got things solved. The day that Flacco's back hurts the first day of training camp, you feel like it's a mess. Flacco goes out and they don't give up a point to Cincinnati. I mean, it really is sort of week to week. But, right now, the Ravens have problems, leakiness everywhere when you lose the way they did. But what's the Steelers' biggest problem? What's the problem they're going to have trouble solving all year long?
Well, I don't know about solving, but their biggest problem right now is their offense. And going into this, I don't think anybody would have thought that. It was, on the defense side, can they, and particularly in the secondary and specifically at cornerback. But, they haven't faced any real good quarterbacks yet. They avoided the Sam Bradford because he was hurt when Minnesota came in here. They played Kaiser in his first game as a rookie in Cleveland. And, they played Mike Glennon Sunday in, where the heck were we? Chicago.
Right.
It all runs together sometimes, Nestor. So none of those quarterbacks are going to be competing for any kind of honors after the season. And the Steelers, the Steelers secondary has not done bad. And they added Joe Hayden. I'm sure everybody in Baltimore knows they signed Joe Hayden.
Can he still play? I mean, people in Cleveland had a real mixed reaction to that. I mean, that's what I said when we had Cleveland Week around there. I'm like, your best cornerback was running around for the Steelers the other day. That's not good for business, right?
No, he was supposed to make $11 million in Cleveland, and he was coming off groin surgery, which is one reason why he played poorly and not very often. Or no, he had a concussion 2 years ago. He had the groin problem last year. He played through it, and he didn't play very well. Well, he had the groin surgery after the season. They wanted him to take a pay cut, and they waited right to the very end to do it, which to me, that's not how you do it. You do it in March, and if he doesn't want to do it, then you release him and you let him find somewhere else. Well, he landed pretty good, he landed with a contender, and he's played reasonably well so far, Nestor. And Artie Burns, their first-round pick last year, has played okay. Sean Davis has helped them. As you well know, he went to Maryland at safety. So their secondary is better. Their pass rush is better. They didn't do very well against the Bears' run game. Like I mentioned, 220 yards, two different backs, one a rookie, and we'll see if Baltimore can do the same thing against them and just run the ball. That's all they did in Chicago. They didn't throw much. They completed one pass to a wide receiver.
Well, so much for the Steelers depends on Antonio Brown, right? Like, he's the real difference maker. He's the best player on the football team, and you got to get him the ball, and you got to get it to him in certain spots, and lots of things have to happen. Do you agree with that, by the way, that he's still the best player on the team?
Well, it might have been a toss-up between him and Bell at one point, but yes, I do. He's the best player on the team.
Yeah, I mean, every time we see you guys, it's Shazier's obvious, and, I know Hayward's been in and out, but, I look at those guys as being really elite football players right now and playing in the best part of their career. Those are the guys I fear when I look up and down the roster. I'm like, well, you better hope that Shazier doesn't have a day and have 4 sacks on Flacco and become like a real game wrecker,
Well, he's been really good. He's been injury free, which has been his problem. It's slowed his progress down, I do believe, Nestor. But he's really been good. He's probably their best player on defense. And Antonio Brown, I mentioned the offense has been a flop. He has not been. He's the only one who's held up his end of the bargain. He's got 300 some yards. He's off to a good start. He saved their game in Cleveland with a big catch, and you know what he did to Baltimore and Pittsburgh at the end of last season. He won the division title for them with that stretch.
Ed, one last thing for you on the knee and on the franchise up there and your perspective of having done this for almost 4 decades now. When I think of Pittsburgh, I think of the Steelers, and maybe that changed a little bit when I saw how supported the Penguins were, and I went up there and saw that they do have love for the Pirates there. But, I mean, for the longest stretch, it's the Steelers and everything else, and obviously Baltimore and the Ravens and the parades here. But, I don't know that there's a closer association to Brandon City than Steelers and Pittsburgh. And this whole mess that's happened in the last couple of days of angry fans, and I know there's a level of that. Is there any thought in your mind that there could be permanent damage in your community? Because I know for Bisciotti, one of the things that we did discuss Colin Kaepernick around here, the commissioner did come here during a practice early in training camp in late August and have to deal with this. And Bisciotti did have the pray for us and all of the stuff that went on here that didn't happen in your place that led to the phones ringing off the hook, the social media blowing up, you better not sign the guy who's taking a knee. All of that stuff that happened here 6 weeks ago is now happening in 32 places and sort of owners under siege, brand under siege. Look, we got a Ray Lewis statue sitting here that, they're going to have to protect from getting defaced in the middle of the night, literally, right? Because he took 2 knees in London on Sunday. So, the inflammatory part of all of that is we're going to boycott the league, we're going to hurt the team. Boy, I think Pittsburgh would be the most impervious place, but to your point, maybe given where the community is, maybe one of the angrier places, given the Villanueva, jersey sales and all the stuff that happened earlier in the week.
Well, they need a better way to, first of all, Nestor, they need a better way to, whatever they're going to do Sunday in Baltimore. They need a better way to explain it, and I don't know that there is one. They really do need to come out and do something. Like the other day, Monday, the locker room's usually open, and then they all go up and have a meeting. Well, they didn't open the locker room. They had a meeting, and it wasn't just a meeting to decide what to do. This is just the players' normal meeting. And then they trotted out Ben Roethlisberger and Cam Hayward. They wouldn't let the reporters in the locker room. And those guys came to a podium. And then later they finally brought out Alejandro, who, he said he botched it. He took the blame for doing it. And he's his own man. I'm sure he wasn't prodded to do that. But he wasn't available in the locker room Sunday. So, it festered. They probably should have stayed in the locker room and talked on Sunday. Maybe that would have explained it all. But it festered for a whole day. And we'll see how long it lasts. But they do have a PR problem. I know that. There's the same things happening here. People burning their Steelers stuff. And
do you take that seriously, or are you thinking they're like my dad in 1981?
No, I saw it happen with Ben when he got in trouble down in Georgia when he was, and then the commissioner suspended him. I mean, they were mailing back his jerseys.
Well, we saw that here with Ray Rice too, right? I mean, after winning a championship.
Yeah.
So
and to a point, probably Ray.
And absolutely, Ray and Jamal. Jamal went to jail here for a couple of months. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Ray was involved in all that stuff, and I'm sure his popularity came back. I know it did, and he's going into the Hall of Fame. So, and it passed over with Ben. It took some time, and I think there's still some people who still are angry about him, but I haven't seen any noticeable. He's still the last one introduced when they do the offense, and I hear no negative reaction. So it'll blow over, but it's certainly not a good PR thing at a time when the NFL has had some problems with ratings and stuff.
Ed Bouchette has covered the Pittsburgh Steelers since 1985. If you want to be a smart, educated fan and know thine enemy, you want to follow Ed Bouchette out on Twitter as well as at post-gazette.com. Love you, Ed Bouchette. Appreciate the time as always, and looking forward to seeing your face down here, bring you ins and out, and we'll get a crab cake and all right?
Always, Nestor.
You got it.
See you Sunday.
Ed Bouchette, who's been Jen Strong from the very beginning in support of my wife, and I do appreciate that as well. It's been a tough time around here with the loss of our beautiful creature, Kitty. I have honored her and tributed her out at WNST.net. You can go read about her, and I know I've been sharing her magic in our life for 5 years, so you know what kind of week it's been around here if you're a pet owner, BuyAToyota.com. Audio Vault is out there 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. app. We do come in crystal clear. We're going to be here all week talking about the Steelers and knees and Le'Veon Bell and Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh and Joe Flacco and offensive lines and injuries. And if there's any breaking news at all, you'll get it first on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Of course, Dennis Kolatzis will be here from 3 until 5 doing the SSV on WNST, driving you home on Thursday. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel, the unjet-lagged version of WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, where we never stop talking Baltimore sports.